I think one thing that particularly has come through in some of the questions from we've received is about this question of allegory. Now, for a long time, people have been reading the Song of Songs as an allegory. Is that a wrong path, Lindsay? Do you feel like that's the right way to go?
I don't think it is the right path, but it is one that has a long history. I mean, it goes back as early as the 2nd century with Hippolytus, and it was, in fact, one of the most commonly preached on books in the Old Testament, and not for the reason you might expect, but because it was seen as an allegory of God's love for the church, or Christ's love for the church. So that was always very important, but there have been just so many different allegories. Ambrose thought that it was to do with God's love for the Virgin Mary, and that was his reading of the Song of Songs.
Why have we gone? I mean, I take it that you agree. You were nodding. You don't think it's allegory, is that right?
I concur. I don't think it's allegory. I think it's important to consider the merits of allegory because we did it that way for so long. But I agree with Lindsay. There's just so many different allegorical interpretations, and I think that tells us that the text isn't really clear. If it is an allegory, it doesn't seem to work.
And why, if it doesn't work, and we'll take that as unanimous amongst the panel, feel free to write letters in if you disagree. Send them to Brian Rosner, care of Ridley College. Why do we go down this path? What was so attractive, Kamina, about as you've read a lot of the older allegorical commentaries, why did we shy away from, I guess, the obvious, it's about two humans in love?
I suspect Lindsay might have more expertise on this than I do, but I'll say something and you can agree or disagree or elaborate. I think that, as you pointed out, we've sort of been following this allegorical interpretation for many hundreds of years. And when you consider probably some of the theology around sexuality that influenced those early interpretations, this was an era in the church where sexuality was viewed with some suspicion, that maybe it wasn't as desirable a state as celibacy. Marriage was fine, but it wasn't as pure as remaining celibate. So you can understand the attraction of wanting to make it about something else, or the reluctance to make it a celebration of human sexuality. And then something else I'll say is that I think there are some very legitimate metaphors in the Bible. So in the Old Testament, we have Israel depicted as God's wife, faithful or unfaithful sometimes. And in the New Testament, we have a metaphor of marriage as a picture of Christ and the church. And so I think it's okay to honour that aspect of it, but I just would be careful to push it as far as the allegorists have done, in which every element of the story means something else. Do you want to add to that, Lindsay?
I must say I agree with that. I think that's it's often been our inability to work out why the Bible ought to be talking about love and sexuality. We thought, well, it looks like it's talking about love and sexuality, but it can't be doing that because it's in the Bible. So what else can it be doing? And of course, because the theme of love is important, and Hosea picks up the marriage metaphor, and Ephesians 5 picks up the church as the bride of Christ, it just seemed an obvious place. If it can't be talking about what it seems to be talking about, it must talk about a relationship with God. And so I think there's a certain prudishness, perhaps, and at least an asceticism that didn't regard human love as a worthy topic to be in Scripture. And I think the allegorical approach was a reaction against that, rather than because it